Hello, YouTube. It's Charles the Destroyer, and we're gonna watch a fat electrician, about Alvin York. So grab your snackies, grab your bevies. Let me know what you're eating and drinking down below. Let's get to watching.
When most people think of a war hero,
That's quiet. Oh, that's why this was quiet. Replay.
When most people think of a war hero, they probably instinctively just jump to John Rambo, the fictional hero from the Vietnam War. Well, John Rambo is actually based off of a real war hero, Roy Benavidez. Roy Benavidez joined the army because he wanted to be like Audie Murphy, the most decorated war hero of World War II, and Audie Murphy joined the military because he wanted to be like this man. Today we're talking about Alvin York, a 6-foot, 215-pound, red-headed hillbilly blacksmith from the mountains of Tennessee that was drafted.
We got them Appalachian boys up here, huh? Yeah, that's gonna go away.
Into World War I despite his desire to be a conscientious objector due to his devout Christian beliefs. By the time his paperwork had cleared recognizing him as a conscientious objector, he decided to go into combat anyways because he had become convinced that he was on a mission from God to protect the innocent, and he would go on to become one of America's greatest war heroes in World War I. And we're gonna get
good for him
right after a word from our sponsor.
Oh my God.
I told you it was big.
Look at her butt.
I mean, I know you said you were packing heat, but Jesus.
And you thought it was going to be smaller than your forearm.
No, it's...
What? Baby doll, what?
I mean, it's rigid, it's hard. I don't see how anybody can ever be disappointed with something like this. I don't...
She needs pearls. She needs to be grabbing some pearls.
The miracle people survive. This is exactly what it looks like.
Hi, Gavin.
This is worse. This is somehow worse. What is that? Why is it here? If it is exactly what it looks like, why the fuck is it here?
All right, here's the deal. Super simple, straightforward business model. You give them money, they turn around and make sure the data brokers on the internet...
He thought it was going to be smaller than his forearm.
selling your personal information. What does that even mean? Okay, here's the entire internet and every free service on the...
No, hold on. No, you're go into the delete me ad without explaining that. Like, what? Are you serious? Why? Why do you have that in your garage or workshop or whatever the hell that building was? Why do you have that?
Planet inside of a nutshell, okay? There's this saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. What that means is pretty much anything on the internet that you use, that's a service, whether that be Google, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of it, okay? It's all an app. So one of two things is happening. They're either going to feed you ads, and that's how that company makes money since their service is free, or they're going to collect your personal information, then turn around and sell it to data brokers on the internet, and then they're going to turn around and sell it to whoever buys it.
Can we get one for my stream? No. That would not fit in here.
And next thing you know, you're getting 17,000 robocalls every single day. And that's where Delete Me comes in. They will look through all the major data brokers and find the ones that are selling your personal information and submit opt-out requests on your behalf, and then they are legally obligated to comply. And then they'll continue to monitor these data brokers, and if they get your information again, Delete Me will submit an opt-out request again. Basically, you're paying Delete Me to get rid of all the downsides of all of the free stuff on the internet, which I think is absolutely worth it. If you want to check them out, I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
What is that light up thing in the background? This doesn't matter. What is this? Is that just reflective? It might just be reflecting this. What is that? That's a chair. That is a chair. Never mind.
All right, our story begins on December 13th, 1887, when Alvin York is born. He is born, he has a mother.
I won't have to worry about the HOA ever bothering you again if I put it in my front yard. Here's the thing. I don't live in a neighborhood with an HOA, nor will I ever. Nor am I willing to sign up if someone wanted to start an HOA. I would rather get a lawyer and fight anyone complaining about the bullshit because, like, I absolutely not. Fuck your HOAs. No, thank you.
A father, 2 older brothers, and would later go on to have 8 younger siblings, and they all grew up in a 2-bedroom log cabin in...
Dang! That sucks.
Pall Mall, Tennessee, right next to the Kentucky border.
I do, in fact, live in an old person neighborhood. And as much as my direct neighbor thinks he's the HOA, he is not. And I think I have finally broken his spirit because he has left me alone for a while.
Up in a 2-bedroom log cabin in Pall Mall, Tennessee, right next to the Kentucky border. The York family has been in this exact spot for generations. Alvin's great-great-grandfather originally settled here, and when he first lived there, he was living inside of a cave. They then later built this log cabin, and that cave was converted into a blacksmith shop. The same exact blacksmith shop that Alvin works in as an apprentice his entire childhood underneath his dad when they're not busy farming their 75 acres and going hunting for food. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to explain to you that these are straight up mountain folk and have been for hundreds of years, okay? They're devout Christians living out in the rural area by the...
You cannot convince me that there are not people still living like this in Appalachia. All right? Like, you cannot convince me that there are not people living off the grid just randomly in random places off that no one knows they're there in those mountains. Those mountains are old, they are weird, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
Themselves, they just want to be left alone to their own affairs and be self-sufficient, and his family is very, very good at it. Now, Alvin was the third oldest, the third son of 11 siblings, and I don't want to say he was the favorite child, but him and his dad did have a very special relationship because he wanted to be just like his dad. He was attached to his dad at the hip from the time that he could walk. He was getting up every morning, going hunting with his dad.
Me in Appalachia. No, that is not me in Appalachia. I am not disappearing into the bushes because A, that requires me to be outside for some fucking reason that I refuse to do. And B, I'm not going into the woods. Bare minimum, there are ticks in the woods. I'm not running the risk of the Lone Star tick coming in contact with me in any way, shape, or form. 2, there's weird shit in the woods. I'm not going into the woods. I'm not going camping. I'm not going and hanging out in there. Hard pass.
And he was coming back and he was working in the field with his dad. Then they were coming back, eating dinner, and he was going out and making horseshoes and working in the blacksmith shop with his dad. And he did that for his entire childhood. One of the things that Alvin excelled at the most was hunting. He was just a natural marksman. He was extremely, extremely accurate. By the time he was 10 years old, he was so accurate with his rifle that when he went turkey hunting, rather than shooting the body and ruin a bunch of the meat, he would opt to just blow the turkey's head off completely, saving all of the meat. Bear in mind,
that's crazy. I mean, that's a shot. Good on him, man.
this is with a Civil War era black powder musket, not a shotgun, so that's extremely impressive. By the time he was a teenager, the nearest town, Pall Mall, Tennessee, would have shooting competitions every weekend, and sometimes shooting competitions would have prizes. There'd be 4 separate events. If you won one of the events, the prize wasn't cash, it was a cow, so you would actually win a quarter of that cow. Young teenage Alvin York would walk miles into town, partake in this shooting competition with his muzzleloader, win all 4 events, and then opt to just take the whole cow and walk it home so he didn't have to carry all the slaughtered meat himself, and he would then slaughter the cow.
Multi-Gear, thank you so much. Well, Multi-Gearbox, thank you so much for the resubscription, or the subscription. I can read. Thank you, I appreciate you.
Once he got home. Not only was
Alvin
extremely accurate with a firearm, but by the time he was 18, 19, 20 years old, he was a pretty big dude by that point in time. Like, he was the biggest guy in his family and the biggest guy in town. He was a 6-foot redhead coming in at 215 pounds that had been doing nothing but running around in the woods hunting for food and blacksmithing his entire life. He was built like a brick shithouse. He was so big and so jacked compared to everybody else living up in the Appalachian Mountains that they would just refer to him as biggin. You know, as in like, hey, go talk to Alvin about that. Oh, okay, sure. Which one's Alvin? Fucking the biggin. And this has been his entire life at this point, his childhood, his teenage years, his early 20s, just hunting out in the woods, blacksmithing, farming, getting food to survive, minding his own business, and going to church on Sundays. That's what he does. That's all he ever wants to do. It's just a perfect, peaceful, happy life. As time goes on, his 2 older brothers wind up finding wives. They move out. They start their own families. Now Alvin is the oldest sibling in the house. And then in 1911, his father passes away, and Alvin becomes the man of the house. And Alvin obviously does not take this that well. His dad was his best friend. He was attached to the man at his hip his entire life. Not only is he gone and he lost his friend, but he has to immediately step in and fill the giant shoes that he left behind to provide for his mother and his 8 younger siblings. During this time, Alvin quits going to church. He picks up a drinking problem, a smoking problem, a gambling problem. He's doing everything he can to make money and provide for his family, but any free time he has, he's spending at the bar getting belligerently drunk. Over the course of the next couple of years, Alvin gets arrested.
I mean, that seems problematic. Like, that seems stressful. So I can see why he did that, but also that's a little rough. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Reputation for being a troublemaker. He's always getting in fights, both fists, knives. Thankfully, he's able to avoid gunfights because anytime somebody wants to pull a gun because he's a big dude, he pulls out his gun and shoots something as a demonstration of how accurate he is. One account said a man pulled a gun on him. He pulled out his gun and then shot the head off a lizard behind him. At which point that guy was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm good. Puts the gun back away, which is probably the correct answer. Now,
I mean, I would assume that is the correct answer. Like, you got a superpower, dude. And I'm not trying to fight superpowered people. Okay, never mind. Just gonna go over here and mind my own business.
Now, this raises a question. How does he always get in all these fights, but he never actually gets in trouble? Well, one, this is the early 1900s in rural Tennessee and Appalachia, so there isn't much law enforcement. But to make things worse, his preferred bar is known as the Blind Tiger, which is literally on the border between Kentucky and Tennessee. And inside the bar, there's a white line painted across the floor labeling each state: Kentucky and Tennessee. So even when the sheriffs did show up, all anybody in the bar would do is, if the Tennessee sheriffs showed up, they would walk over to the Kentucky side and be like, you don't have any jurisdiction here, and vice versa.
You're just out of our jurisdiction.
And so if I'm across the bar and you're over there, there's no way that you...
Now to us,
That that's funny. Not necessarily incorrect, but very funny.
modern day people, obviously this sounds a little bit ridiculous, that they would just walk across a painted line on the
Oh, I did go shoot guns for Father's Day with my dad. Would not have been able to shoot a lizard. I'm gonna be honest. And it was pistols. So, this is crazy to me.
ground, like it was, you know, a salt line that demons can't cross and the law enforcement can't get you. But back then, it's really how it went, because if 1, 2, even 3 deputies showed up to a bar fight and there's 40 people in the bar and they all walk to the other side and they're like, you have no jurisdiction here, and the other 40 dudes all have guns, guess what? You don't really have any jurisdiction here. The only jurisdiction you have is to lose a 40-on-3 gunfight. Okay, this is 1912, rural Tennessee. There's no calling for backup for the sheriff's department. There's no local police department. There's no highway patrol. There's no National Guard, no FBI, no feds. Nobody's coming to back you up. If you get into some shit with the wrong people, you're just going to be another motherfucker that went missing in the mountains of Appalachia. The end. So Alvin York is just kind of an unstoppable terror on the town when he's drunk. He gets mean. He's huge. You can't beat him in a fist fight. You can't beat him in a gunfight. There's not really anything you can do to the guy. He winds up getting accused of selling stolen guns, never gets in trouble for it. He'd walk out of the bar at sunrise absolutely hammered. A rooster would crow. He'd pull out his gun and shoot somebody's rooster just because he was hungover and didn't want to hear it. He'd be drunk in the middle of the town yelling while church is in session, trying to disrupt everything. Just, there was nothing anybody could do about the guy, and this went on for years. And the entire time, he's just breaking his mom's heart, because this is not the sweet young kid that she raised. This isn't the man his father was. This isn't the man he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be his dad version 2.0, bigger and stronger and hopefully even better. And he's just not turning out that way. Then on New Year's Eve, 1914, Alvin goes out.
I mean, it's stressful. He lost his dad, and then he had to, like, take up the mantle, and that's a lot of stress.
Drinking, comes back home, 3 in the morning, pissed drunk, and his mom stays up all night waiting for him, and she finally confronts him and just says, Alvin, when are you going to start being the man that your father and your grandfathers were? And the words hit Alvin like an absolute truck. He knows what he's been doing is wrong, and he just breaks down. He's literally on his knees, sobbing with his head in his mom's lap, crying and apologizing. He promises his mom he's going to turn it around. He's going to start going to church again. He's going to give up gambling, smoking, drinking, fighting, everything. He's going to be the man his father was and the man that he was supposed to be. And his mom...
If nothing else, Giving up the smoking and the drinking is going to save money, so you have more money to give to the household, if nothing else.
Fighting, everything. He's going to be the man his father was and the man that he was supposed to be. And his mom just says, I know you will. And that's it. January 1st, 1915, Alvin York is a completely new man. He gives up all of it. He starts going to church again, and he just starts doing all the things that he should have been doing all along. I'm paraphrasing here, but he would later go on to write that essentially he had fought an awful lot of men at this point in his life, and the fight that he had with himself to give up drinking and smoking was absolutely the hardest fight he ever had. But
Yeah, that shit's addictive and is hard. It's hard. I believe if you're trying to give up any of those things, I am proud of you. And also, I believe in you. Keep up the fight.
he does it, and within a couple of years, he's an elder in his church. He's literally teaching Sunday school to kids, and he's overall just an upstanding member in his community. His reputation isn't fully repaired yet, but it's definitely getting better. Around this point in time, he falls in love with the girl down the road, Gracie. He meets up with her in private all the time. They never do anything wrong. They never kiss. They don't even hold hands. But they just talk, and Alvin York wants to marry this woman. Problem is her father does not approve because he's only been an upstanding member of the community for a couple of years now, and he was an absolute terror for like 5 years before that, and he's not convinced that Alvin York is a good man yet. And York just kind of accepts that. He knows that he did wrong, and he's got to prove that he's a good man now, so he just gives the father more time and just keeps being an upstanding member in the community. He keeps seeing Gracie, but they never kiss, they never hold hands, they never do anything that would be considered wrong for, Christians in the early 1900s. And that's his plan. He's going to prove to Gracie's father that he's a good man over time, and then he's going to marry that girl, make her his wife, and he's going to go on to live happily ever after. But then in September of 1917, he gets a red card in the mail from Washington, D.C. Alvin York has just been notified that he is to go sign up for the draft to go fight in World War I. Now, he's a devout Christian at this point. He truly, truly believes in his heart, thou shalt not kill. He does not think that he is supposed to fight, kill, do any of that business, and he does not want to go off to war and do it. So on the draft card they sent him, where he's supposed to fill out all of his
I don't know if that's a joke or whatever, but we are supportive of people who have decided to turn their lives around in whatever way they decided to turn their lives around. And we are not going to, I don't know, be mean or jokey about it. I'm proud of you, Alone.
information. They ask on there, are you a conscientious objector? He checks yes. Explain your reasoning. He simply writes, I don't want to fight, and mails it back off.
I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving.
Obviously, that gets rejected.
Yeah. No, they're going to be like, you are, though. Your ass better be over here.
Alvin York, kind of not knowing what to do, goes to the pastor for help. The pastor helps him file an appeal to send it off to Nashville, and with that appeal, he has two sworn statements, one from Alvin, one from the pastor, saying, hey, this is his religion, he's not supposed to be killing people, he should be recognized as a conscientious objector. They mail that off to Nashville, and it still gets rejected again. And the reasoning behind that is because Alvin York's sect of Christianity was Pentecostal, which is a fairly new sect of Christianity at this point in time. I believe it started in the early 1900s as kind of a veer off from Methodist. So the draft committee in Nashville is essentially like, look, this is a new church. It's not nationwide. It's not well recognized. All the other mainstream Christian denominations, Catholic, Orthodox, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, they're all getting drafted and going off to war. You guys can too. At this point in time, unless
I mean, yeah, I was about to say, if the only thing that you had to check to be like I'm a conscientious whatever, is like, hey, I go to church, I'm a Christian, you wouldn't be able to draft anybody because everyone would objector, the conscientious objector. You wouldn't be able to draft anybody. There would be no one left in your draft, right? So, like, I don't think they care. Like, I don't know. I am not personally part of the military. My direct parents were not either. My grandparents were, but I can't ask them about this. So, like, at least the ones that were, I can't. Because they're gone. But, like, I feel like they would be like, so, like, oh, you're a Christian? Cool. So, basically everybody we're drafting. There's a church on base. Or, like, there's a pastor on base. There's a religious person on base. Get your ass over here. So I just feel like you can't just be like, well, I'm a Christian, so no. For a draft, I don't think so. Again, I don't know, but that's just my feelings.
Unless you were like actually a pastor or priest in one of these Christian denominations, conscientious objector status was more reserved for like Quakers, Amish, and Mennonites. So that's it. Alvin York's getting drafted. By November, he's got orders to report for duty, and by February, he is attached to G Company of the
Okay.
328th Battalion of the 82nd Infantry Division, also known as the All-American Division. Now, typically at this point in time in World War I, World War II, divisions are kind of divvied up by the region that they come from, right? Like the 34th Infantry Division is a bunch of guys from the Midwest. The 77th Infantry Division is a bunch of guys from New York and New Jersey. The 442nd Infantry Regiment is a bunch of Japanese Americans from the West Coast and Hawaii. But the 82nd Infantry Division in World War I is kind of an experiment because they just threw everybody into the same infantry division. They've got people from all 50 states, and 20% of the men weren't even born in America. So you can imagine the culture shock for Alvin, some hillbilly that's lived in rural Tennessee his entire life, probably never traveled more than 60 miles away from his home, and now he's in this place surrounded by people from all 50 states, Poles, Italians, Greeks. It's
Also, that'd be kind of scary, right? Like, hey, I've never been like super far away. First of all, I've never been out of my state, or I've never really been out of like my county even, and suddenly I'm in a completely different state, or like going to a completely different country. Like, this is pre-internet, guys. That'd be crazy. Like, dang.
Absolutely crazy. Alvin later said he'd never seen a group of men that could outdrink, outcurse, and outfight these guys, and that's why they are the All-American Division, because they are the embodiment of the concept of the American melting pot. And that's why their logo today says AA on it, for athletic alcoholics. I mean, All-American.
He's absolutely right.
Training, York starts doing everything he's told to do to the best of his ability, but in the background, he's still kind of trying to go through the paperwork, go through the chain of command, and get himself recognized as a conscientious objector, because at the end of the day, he still does not want to go off and have to take somebody's life, because he truly believes thou shalt not kill.
You know, quite a bit of killing does occur in a war.
Despite that, if push comes to shove, it's looking like he might be the best man at doing it, because he grew up his entire life no-scope headshotting turkeys with a Civil War era muzzleloader, and the Army has just given him a model 1917 Enfield high-powered rifle chambered in 30-06, and this thing is an absolute killing machine in the hands of Alvin York. He is.
But also, can I take this gun home with me? Because I feel like two things. Either one, this is going to make hunting really easy, or two, this is going to destroy whatever I hunt. So I don't know.
Sitting there in training, hitting bullseye after bullseye. He is the best shot in the entire division. You got to remember, pretty broad group of people. There's a lot of people in this division that grew up in a city that have never even seen a rifle, and Alvin's been handling one since he could walk.
Welcome.
Also, around this point, York starts keeping a diary, mostly just his personal thoughts on how he's dealing with the potential, internal struggle of having to go off to war and take somebody's life when he doesn't feel like that's the right thing to do. And eventually, word gets around that York is keeping a diary, which is against the rules, because you're not supposed to keep a diary, because you could write down important intel, and if you get captured off in war and they capture your diary, you could end up betraying information to the enemy. So his commanding officer, Captain Danforth, kind of confronts him about it and is like, hey, are you keeping a journal? At which point York, being a devout Christian man not wanting to lie, kind of dodges the question. He says, sir, I'm not saying whether I do or whether I don't. At which point the captain says a diary is going to betray you and your comrades. At which point York replies, sir, I didn't come to fight in a war and get captured. If the Germans want to get any intel out of me, they're going to have to get it out of my dead body. And that's coming from the 6', 215-pound redhead brick shithouse hillbilly that only knows how to hit bullseyes. So the captain's like, fuck it, all right. And York just keeps maintaining this diary. But because York was honest with Captain Danforth, he kind of comes to him and is like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. I think I should be a conscientious objector. I do not want to go after combat and have to kill somebody. I truly believe thou shalt not kill. Captain Danforth doesn't have that, authority to grant him that, so he kicks it up the chain of command, and he ends up talking to his boss, Colonel Buxton. Colonel Buxton, a devout Christian man, but unlike York, he also believes that Christians have an obligation to go off and fight for their country when it's needed. So he calls York into his office. York shows up. York explains everything, a devout Christian, elder in my church, thou shalt not kill. At which point Colonel Buxton is like, so do you believe everything that's in the Bible? To which York is like, absolutely, yes, sir.
that can I'm like, that could be a trap question. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Buxton is like, so do you believe everything that's in the Bible? To which York is like, absolutely, yes, sir. At which point, Buxton hits him with a verse from the Bible. Luke 22,
Yep.
he who hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. York
Yeah, I was like, it's gonna.
a
Yep.
verse from the Bible. Luke 22,
He said to them, but now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Yeah.
he who hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. York immediately fires back with another piece of scripture that supports his position. Then Colonel Buxton fires back with another piece of scripture that supports his. And they go
Y'all ever get into a Bible debate with somebody that literally went and did like Bible, like, oh, what is it? Trivia contest things? Those exist, by the way. Like 100% those things exist. No, it's like a statewide thing. It's like, or it used to be, I don't know. Like, you better know that book inside and out, front and back. No, it's national. I'm so sorry. What were they called, by the way? Maria's like, I wonder what she's talking about. It's like national statewide Bible trivia. You better know every single thing about that book frontwards and backwards and every single bit of nuance, and then you're gonna get caught on a technicality that you entirely disagree with. Like, Lord.
go back and forth having this scripture rap battle for over an hour.
Book of Isaiah, chapter 6.
It's like two
Yeah.
battle with Bible verses for over an hour. It's absolutely crazy. And then Colonel Buxton ends up winning when he hits York with Ezekiel 33. If the watchman sees the sword coming and blows no trumpet, the blood of the people is on his hands.
Okay, but if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person's life will be taken because of their sin. But I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood.
And this shatters York's entire worldview. York has this epiphany. Maybe he's been sent there by God because he's the watchman. Maybe he's supposed
there
to
it
be
is.
there to protect the innocent. So now he doesn't know what to do. But unbeknownst to him, while this has been going on, his pastor and Gracie and his mom back home have been writing every politician trying to get him recognized as a conscientious objector. They even wrote the office of the president, and they got it pushed through. York receives the paperwork. All he has to do is sign his name on the dotted line, and he will be recognized as a conscientious objector. Now, he doesn't know if that's what he's supposed to do. Maybe he's supposed to go off and fight in this war. So Captain Danforth
Maybe he was chosen.
gives him 10 days to go back home and figure it out. He goes home, he sees Gracie, she supports whatever he's gonna do, and then he just goes out in the woods on his favorite rock with his Bible, and he sits there for 36 hours reading the Bible and praying. Doesn't eat, doesn't drink, fasts the entire time. We don't really know what happened up there, but we do know when he comes back down, he decides that he's gonna go off to war. Okay, pause, just so we're all on the same page. Whether you're religious and believe in this type of stuff, or you're an atheist, or you're religious but you believe York might be a little bit crazy, none of that matters. The only thing that matters with this now is that the 6-foot-tall, redhead, brick shithouse expert marksman now believes that he is on a mission from God to defend the innocent, and that should terrify absolutely everybody.
Yeah, people that believe that they are sent by God, they're hard to stop.
And if you don't understand the significance of this, I've been doing combat sports my entire life. Taekwondo, karate, boxing, kickboxing. I'm a jiu-jitsu coach. I've got certifications in MACP from my time in the Army. If you name a combat sport, I've probably done it to some extent, and I've done it against a broad demographic of people. And I'm telling you right now, the toughest people on the planet are these rural farm kids that grew up in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. You borderline have to kill them just to get them to slow down, and that's when they're doing it for fun, okay? I've never had to compete against one of these dudes dudes when they thought they were on a mission from God to defeat me. And I'm going to be honest, I don't want to. It sounds like an absolutely...
Oh my God. It's hard to stop them just because that's all they can do. That's their funness, right? That's their hobby, and it's hard to stop them if they think that it's because of the will of God. Oh my God. No. Bruh, you're not walking out of it.
horrible time. So York finishes up his 10 days of leave, heads back over to G Company, reports to Captain Danforth. Captain Danforth asks him if he wants to fight Germans. York replies, if a man can make peace through fighting, he's a peacemaker. And with that, they ship off to war. May 1st, they board the ship to head across the Atlantic Ocean, and York has never seen the ocean before. It's the most beautiful, incredible thing he's ever seen in his entire life. He's just completely awestruck at its beauty. And then 5 minutes later, he's violently puking and he gets seasick the entire voyage. So the 2nd makes it into theater in June 1918, and they spend the first couple of months there kind of getting rotated into reserve positions. You know, they're occupying trenches that aren't seeing a lot of combat. Or
dudes used to like Appalachian Mountains, not the rocking of a boat. Lord, I don't think the Appalachian Mountains get tall enough for you to get oxygen sick or whatever it is, like where you need to like have oxygen that you breathe. I've been to like some of the mountains in Tennessee. They don't get that tall, I don't think. So like this is very much different ground for you. They don't? Yeah, I've also been to Colorado where they kind of do, but like yeah, it's just like this is very much different different placement.
They're going out on patrols. They do see some combat. They get hit with artillery. There's sniper fire, but it's not the front line. Like, it's not where all the action is happening. Despite that, during this time, York really lays down a pretty impressive demonstration of his faith, because this dude, again, believes that he's on a mission from God, and in his mind, God's not going to let him get hurt, and even if he does, it's part of God's plan, so it's okay. He does not give a fuck about anything. Like, they have enemy artillery fire coming in, everybody else is hitting the dirt, hiding in foxholes, and York is just standing there like, it'll be fine, God's gonna protect me, which sounds stupid, but it's not stupid if it works, and it works the entire time. The dude never gets so much as a scratch. In his journal, he literally writes that enemy sniper fire when it's close sounds like angry bumblebees when I used to rob their nest back at home. Like, everybody else is having the worst time of their life, and him almost getting his head taken off by an enemy sniper is bringing back fond childhood memories.
I'm in danger.
Okay, he
Jesus, dude's like aura farming out in the middle of World War I, just like standing there, like if it happens, it happens. But God's with me. That's also just scary. Like you're like, it's that dude. Does that dude want to get sent home in a box? Like, what is that dude doing? Like, you know?
Also wrote in his journal, quote, there's no use in worrying about shells if you can't alter things. Just ask God to help you and accept it. Men who worry destroy their peace of mind without doing any good. Okay, he's like,
apparently king of it is what it is. Like, I can, dang. Just dang. Straight up, like, if I get shot, I get shot. If it happens, it happens.
Like the Terminator version of the slightly awkward homeschooled kid that you met at your first job in high school. Okay, don't give me that look. You know exactly what I'm talking about. From here, they start seeing more heavy combat. They have to go in and push the Germans.
I know what you're talking about, but not from my first job in high school. It was from college.
Exactly what I'm talking about. From here, they start seeing more heavy combat. They have to go in and push the Germans out of this stronghold called St. Mihail. They go in, they push the Germans out. The Germans end up retreating. They take over the town.
Yeah, that's cute. I have anxiety, though. That's not how my brain's wired. My brain's I've got like anxiety and paranoia. My brain is wired to give too much of a fuck.
Town, hooray. After they take over the town, right outside the town, there's all these vineyards full of fresh grapes. Grapes are essentially candy, and these guys have been eating army rations for months. That sounds delicious. So all the soldiers are going out into these vineyards, they're eating grapes. The Germans send up weather balloons, they end up spotting a bunch of soldiers in these vineyards, and they start dropping artillery on them. All the soldiers retreat, the chain of command's like, okay, no more going out in the vineyards to eat grapes because they're gonna blow your ass up. But Sergeant York knows he's not gonna get blown up because God's gonna protect him. So he sneaks off on his own against orders to go eat some grapes. Sergeant York is out there, it's peaceful, he's eating grapes, he's having a moment to himself in the silence, and then he turns around and it's Captain Danforth. And they kind of look at each other like, oh shit, we're both caught. And Captain Danforth is like, you're not supposed to be here. And York is like, yes, sir. And Captain Danforth is like, these grapes are delicious. And York is like, yes, sir.
Anyway, about these grapes. Don't light a candle.
From here, York and the 82nd are going from St. Mihiel to another town called Chantal-Cherie. It has been held by the Germans for over 4 years, the entire duration of World War I. The Germans have been here. Whether York and the rest of the 82nd realize it at this point in time or not, they are about to participate in the Meuse-Argonne offensive. It is quite literally the largest military offensive in U.S. military history. Not largest at this point in time, no, just the largest ever, period. Okay, to put this in perspective, when people think of like huge military offensives, everybody automatically thinks of, D-Day, Saving Private Ryan, other TV shows and movies about World War II. It's this massive battle scene, right? D-Day had 156,000 men hitting the beach. The Meuse-Argonne offensive is 2 million men attacked.
Jesus! 2 million? Dang.
The German front. It is a military operation that is quite literally so large, it is hard to conceptualize, okay? There's 50 states in the United States. 11 of them have less than 2 million people, okay? There's 11 states in the United States that have less people living in them in totality, between old people, young people, kids, than the amount of soldiers that are about to rush the German line. So this is only one very, very small chunk of an enormous battle, but York and the 82nd show up to Chantal-Cherie. Germans don't even put up a fight for it. They literally just leave the town and head off into the wood line outside the town. Now, right,
they're like, 1, 2, 3. That's too many goddamn people. I'ma leave. You can have this place. Bye.
right outside the town, there's a big hill called Hill 223. Then there's a big valley. And then on the other side of that valley, there's 3 more hills in a triangular formation. So the 82nd goes in, they push the Germans off Hill 223. They take that hill. Now they're looking forward. It's the valley, 3 triangular hills directly in front of them. And they're going to have to cross that valley while the Germans are on top of those other 3 hills. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you the 82nd is now going to have to run through a valley, AKA no cover, no concealment, while the Germans have the high ground in a triangular formation on top of hills with embedded machine gun positions. This is an absolute meat grinder of a situation.
Yep.
The Germans are dug in. I don't mean they dug a little hole and slapped their machine gun over the side of it. No, they've been there for 4 years, okay? They have chopped down trees, built up actual lumber walls to hide behind with roofs and camouflage the entire things. They can't even see where the German machine gun fire is going to be coming from, let alone effectively return fire. If they're going to have any chance of success at this, they're going to have to coordinate with artillery. They're going to have to drop artillery at the exact moment that they send a wave of men across the valley, and hopefully they're going to be able to overtake these hills and take out the Germans. So that's the plan. Orders come down at 6:10 a.m. on October 8th, 1918. American artillery is going to bombard the German position, hopefully get them to duck their heads and take cover for a minute, while America sends out 2 waves, 60 men that try to run across this valley and overthrow their position. So they...
God. So, like, they're sending artillery out for the hope that they duck. And in the time in which they are ducking, sending out waves of people to go across this valley and hope they have enough time to get past before they're back at position. That's what they're doing? That's crazy. That's bonkers. I mean, it was World War I, all right? Like, I get it. That's scary as hell. Like, just straight up.
wait, and while they're waiting, the orders actually end up changing because the unit that's supposed to be on the 82nd's flank is hung up taking German fire, and they're not in the position they need to be in to be able to support the 82nd. Unfortunately, the runner with these new orders that was sent to Hill 223 winds up getting killed, and the message never makes it to the 82nd. So as far as they know, they're still supposed to attack this objective at 6:10. 6 o'clock rolls around. No American artillery bombarding the position yet. 6:05. Still no artillery bombarding the position. At this point, people are looking around like, are we still gonna fucking launch this attack without American artillery support? What are we doing? The officer in charge is like, we were ordered to attack at 6:10. We're attacking at 6:10. Sure enough, 6:10 rolls around.
Say your prayers, I guess. We're going in.
The American artillery never shows up. He sends out 2 waves, 60 men. None of them make it. As this battle unfolds and the German machine guns open fire, the chain of command can see there's like 35 machine gun nests all over these 3 hills. There's absolutely no way they're gonna make it past 35 German machine guns. From here, the chain of command decides the best course of action is gonna be to send out a small patrol of men. They're hopefully gonna be able to skirt out around the backside of these German machine gun positions and make it to the center hill where most of their firepower is and take out all those machine gun nests. Then they should be able to assault through the valley and up onto these hills. Okay, just so we're on the same page, this is also not a great plan, okay? Like, yes, they're not assaulting the positions directly, but, you know, if the Germans are straight in front of you, they're gonna run off this way, still through part of this valley, not as big of a part, not as much time to fire on them, but it's still a valley with no cover, no concealment, in broad fucking daylight. Like,
with, like, I mean, they could still just, like, turn and fire at you. At least some of them, if not all of them. Like, you know, they're stretched out on 3 different hills, so maybe one hill can't. Jesus.
Best case scenario, they all run really fast, the Germans don't hit them, but now the Germans know that they're coming. So it's not a good plan, but it's the only one we've got. So they pick 17 men, they've got a sergeant, 3 corporals, and a bunch of privates. One of those corporals is Corporal Alvin York. So they go down to the base of Hill 223, probably get a quick stretch in, hype themselves up, about to run through German machine gun fire, no big deal. They're getting ready and they're counting it down and they're all gonna hop up and start running for their lives. It's like 3, 2, 1, and right as they say 1, the German machine gun positions just start getting bombarded with American artillery.
Oh, good.
It showed up late, and it showed up at the perfect time as all these guys start running across this narrow stretch of the valley. All the Germans are forced to take cover, and none of the Germans see these guys clear the valley. Okay, I don't know if it's divine intervention, plot armor, fate, call it whatever you want, but in this particular case, shit worked out perfect.
Stop it on the enemy! We love you, God! Jesus Christ!
They make it through the valley completely undetected into the wood line, and now they spend the next hour and a half sneaking through the woods up and around behind the German position. After like an hour of sneaking through the woods in pretty much a straight line, the sergeant pulls off to the side and he's like, okay, do we think we've gone far enough that we need to start turning because we're going to be behind the German machine gun positions now, or do we need to go a little bit further? He wants to consult his corporals, see what everybody thinks. First 2 corporals say they've gone far enough, they should turn now. Gets to Alvin York, and Alvin York, for some reason, feels like they haven't gone far enough yet. And he's like, I think we should keep going straight for a little bit further. Okay, again, I have no idea why Alvin York thought that. I don't know if he, you know, has a feeling of God. I don't know if he can hear the narrator speaking because he's wearing the plot armor, but he decides to keep going straight. The sergeant agrees. They go straight for a little bit longer, and they come up on this like 3-foot deep trench. Now, it's not a military trench, it's just like a 3-foot deep hole. They have no—
Sorry, if you saw me like duck for a second, I was capturing my cat to put her on my lap.
idea why it's there or what it's not a military trench, it's just like a 3-foot deep hole. They have no idea why it's there or what it's doing. It's clearly not a military trench, but it is going to be pretty handy for them to crouch down and walk in and remain concealed and go unnoticed. In hindsight, historians would figure out later that it was actually a trench that had been there for hundreds of years that was actually used originally as a marker between 2 separate pieces of property, which means that
Jesus, hundreds of years trench. All right.
Germans didn't put it there, and they probably don't even know it exists. So they use this trench to get further and further. It slips them right past that first hill and straight towards the hill that's in the center.
Okay, hold on. Okay, I understand.
Which is their objective. So as they're making their way there, they come up on this little creek, and on this creek, there's 2 German soldiers just filling up an entire cart full of canteens to bring back to all the other Germans. Those Germans—
Oh, hell yeah, free water. That's our water now. We're taking that water.
Germans see the Americans, they shit their pants and take off running. York and his guys take off chasing them because they want to capture them or kill them so that they don't alert the rest of the Germans that they're there. As they're chasing these guys down, they come up onto this meadow, and in this meadow, holy shit, it's the battalion headquarters tent for the entire German unit there. And right beside the tent, there's
we're gonna take care of this tent. Y'all not gonna get any more information, orders and stuff.
70 German infantry soldiers that are just sitting in this meadow, chilling, eating lunch. These were the reinforcements that the Germans had brought in to
That's my lunch now.
launch a counterattack against the 82nd Division. Now, the two Germans that they're chasing do not immediately cut out into the meadow because they don't want to run out into the open because then the Americans are going to shoot them. So they want to skirt this tree line and get as close to that tent as they can and then run into the tent and tell the German commander that the Americans are here. Okay, that's a good plan on their part as far as, you know, not getting shot and dying goes.
Except you got a dude that's a sharpshooter that is used to hunting in the woods. So I feel like that's not going to work out for you.
But fortunately for the Americans, this gives them time to be like, fuck that, let them keep running through the wood line. They immediately advance into the meadow and attack these 70 soldiers that aren't carrying their guns. They're just sitting down, chilling, eating lunch, and immediately force all 70 of them to surrender. Now, the 70 Germans are caught completely off guard. All they see is Americans running towards them with their guns up, yelling surrender. These guys have their guns, you know, all set to the side. Half of them are sleeping, half of them are eating. They think it's a huge American counterattack, so they surrender immediately, not knowing that it's only 17 guys. While the Germans are standing up, putting their hands in the air, the other two canteen Germans cut out of the wood line, run into the battalion command tent, and tell the German commander, Commander Vollmer, the Americans are attacking. He freaks out, grabs his pistol, turns around, goes to tell the 70 infantry troops that just showed up, get ready for a fight, and what he sees is they're already standing with their arms up in the air. They've already surrendered, and he's like, what the fuck?
I'm surrounded by idiots.
He then turns around,
Too late.
again, probably trying to quickly send a runner or send a radio transmission to his other guys up on the hill, letting them know the Americans are here. And right in front of him is 6 foot tall, red-haired, red-mustached, ginger Alvin York standing there with his gun. And he's like, surrender. So Commander Vollmer, who actually went to college in Chicago and in Alvin York's own words, speaks better English than he does, understands exactly what Alvin York said, and agrees to surrender. York and Vollmer then leave the tent and they go out, and York's going to talk to the rest of his guys, and the Germans on top of Hill 2 with their machine guns have figured out something is going on, and they scream down at the Germans in German, presumably saying, get down. All the Germans drop and the German machine guns open fire. Before York's guys even know what's going on, they are already getting lit up by these German machine guns. In a matter of seconds, 6 Americans are killed, 3 are injured, leaving 8 men left in play with 70 prisoners and German machine gunners up on the hill opening fire on them. Of the 9 American casualties, they include the sergeant and the other 2 corporals, meaning that the only corporal, the only NCO, the only leadership position left in play is Alvin York and a bunch of privates. Alvin York is now in charge. The rest of the Americans all drop to the ground, try to return fire, but they're mostly just taking cover. Alvin York rushes the hill by himself.
So, I'm gonna kill each and every one of you, and the only disappointment in it for me is that I only get to do it once.
Well, main character energy.
The privates then get themselves
I have been chosen by God. I am the main character, and I'm going to see this through.
Oriented to the situation, and the 7 remaining dudes are both returning fire, trying to provide covering fire for Alvin York, while also trying to make sure that the 70 unarmed Germans behind them don't jump them and overpower them. York continues to advance under enemy fire, reaches a little swell on the ground, and drops down into a prone position, not because he's trying to avoid bullet fire. God does that for him. He just drops down to prone so he can be more accurate. So now he's looking down the sights of his rifle, and he's just waiting for the German helmet to pop up. He's sitting there, he's yelling, surrender, give up. He's literally trying to be a nice guy about this. German helmet pops up, domes the guy immediately. And in the back of his head, all he can think is, man, these German heads are way bigger than the heads of turkeys back home when I was hunting. He's still continuing to shout surrender as German helmets keep popping up, trying to man the machine gun.
Not only are they bigger targets, the gun he is using is more accurate.
And every time a German helmet pops up, he fucking drops them.
You are amazing at this. How did you get so good?
Whacking moles.
And this goes on for a minute. Alvin York just being the polite homeschool kid Terminator, literally like, guys, seriously, please surrender. Bang. Okay, that's enough now. You guys can quit. Bang. Okay, guys, please surrender. Bang. During this phase of the battle, Alvin York is credited with somewhere between 18 and 23 kills. Okay, now to understand and comprehend what's going to happen next, you have to understand the perspective of the Germans that are up on top of the hill. They have the high ground, they have machine guns, they have fortified fighting positions, and they are in a firefight with one man, some 6-foot-tall ginger hillbilly from Tennessee, and somehow they're losing. And every time one of them builds up the courage to pop up over the berm, man the machine gun to return fire, this giant ginger sends their brain on a field trip. And just so we're all on the same page, York is shooting an infield chambered in 30-06. That is a high-powered rifle cartridge that is commonly used for hunting elk and moose. This rifle and this round is significantly more powerful and way more scary than the scary AR-15s shooting 5.56 that the Army uses today. To put it into perspective, here's a watermelon getting shot by 5.56 and 30-06 at 16,000 frames per second.
Well,
if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you that if you're a German on top of that hill and you've just seen 20 of your buddies get their eyebrows sent into fucking orbit, that's starting to look like not that great of an idea, and you're probably looking for alternatives. Bearing that in mind,
maybe we should surrender. Maybe I don't want to be here.
the Germans decide they're going to do something that tactically doesn't make a lot of sense. They're going to leave their fortified fighting positions, they're going to abandon the high ground, they're going to grab their rifles, fix bayonets, and they're going to charge this giant red-headed hillbilly and show him what's up. So 12 Germans hop out of their fortified fighting positions with rifles and fixed bayonets, and
the idea is like he can't get us all, right? Not if we're all going as a group. Like overwhelm him with numbers, right?
bayonet charge Alvin York, which in hindsight was a complete mistake for them, and it worked out for Alvin York because Alvin was actually out of rifle rounds altogether and he wasn't going to be able to do anything else. But now he's got 12 Germans running at him, so he pops up, grabs his Colt 1911 chambered in 45 ACP. Bear in mind, he's only got 8 rounds and 12 Germans running at him. Alvin York immediately shoots one, drops him. At that point, 4 of the other Germans decide, okay, this is clearly the main character. I'm an anonymous henchman. I'm just going to call it a day. They hop.
Oh, I'm fodder. I'm out. That's mood.
Back in the trench.
And look at you. You haven't even got a name tag. You've got no chance. Why don't you just fall down? Go on, son.
So now there's 7 Germans still bayonet charging him, and he has 7 bullets. He has to be absolutely perfect. Now, from the lead German's perspective, the guy that's out in front, obviously, he's the one that's going to get shot first. I mean, right? That's what makes sense. You shoot the closest threat first. That way, nobody comes to get you, right? So, as long as he doesn't get shot, everything's going great. He sees Alvin York fire. The bullet whizzes past him. Alvin York missed. Fires again. Another bullet whizzes past him. Again. All of the bullets, all 6 of them, go whizzing right past him. He's got 1 bullet left. He gets shot directly in the stomach and drops. But what actually happened, Alvin York didn't miss. He didn't miss a single time. Alvin York knew that if he shot the dude in the front, everybody behind him was going to see it, and they were all going to take cover, and he wasn't going to have any ammo. So he decided to take out the Germans the same way.
From the back to the front. Oh my God. Bro, like, hey, I'm gonna take out the guy in the back because when he falls down, the ones in the front aren't gonna notice. So I'm just gonna do that consecutively, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just gonna continuously aim for whoever's the last one. Damn.
Way that you shoot a flock of geese that are flying, and he took out the geese at the rear of the formation.
Yeah.
Working his way to the front so the formation didn't scatter. He was shooting the man in the back instead of the man in the front and dropped all 7 Germans. Now, cutting back to Alvin York's perspective during this bayonet charge where he's using bird hunting tactics to kill Nazis, he has bullets whizzing past him from behind him. Somebody is shooting at him while he's shooting these Germans. It's that German commander Vollmer, because remember, nobody bothered to take his pistol away from inside the tent because shit hit the fan so fast, and he's trying to save his own guys, which is pretty understandable. So while York is shooting at Germans with his pistol, Vollmer is shooting at York with his pistol, and York doesn't give one single fuck, because remember, he's on a mission from God, and God is going to protect him, and if he doesn't get protected, it's all part of God's plan, so it's going to be fine. So York just focuses on what he's doing and lets everything else work itself out, and of course, doesn't get a single scratch on him the entire time. Vollmer empties the pistol, misses every single shot. York lands every one of his. At this point, York turns around, Vollmer drops the pistol, puts his hands up.
He's like, listen. it's war and I made an attempt and I don't think that's illegal. I think that's very valid of me. And you're fine.
He knows when he's been bested, and he looks at York and he just goes, English? Like, clearly asking, like, you know, hey, I speak English, let's talk this out. York does not interpret it that way and goes, no. To which Vollmer's like, what? And York goes, I'm an American. And he's like, no.
English isn't the language. I'm not asking if you're from Great Britain, all right? No, I'm asking if you speak it. Like, I don't know how you could ever miss a shot, because I definitely missed some shots at the gun range. I'm not even gonna lie to you. They were non-moving targets. This was the first time I ever shot pistols, to be fair, but still, not me. I can't relate to never missing a shot. I'm gonna be honest. English? No. What? I'm American. So you speak English? Please. York wasn't moving, though. We was shooting him from behind. Fair.
No, I'm saying I speak English. Quit killing everybody. I'll get the guys up there to surrender so you don't have to kill everybody. At which point, York reloads his pistol, points it at Vollmer, is like, okay, go ahead. Vollmer starts yelling a bunch of stuff up the hill in German. Couple seconds later, a bunch of more Germans come out, no weapons, with their hands up, and they surrender too. Germans finish coming down the hill. They join the rest of the POWs, at which point, one of the 7 remaining privates comes up to York and is like, York, what are we going to do with all these prisoners? We don't have enough men to handle this many guys and get them back behind our lines. Vollmer hears this and he's like, what? I'm sorry, how many men do you guys actually have? And York is like, I've got plenty, don't worry about it. At this point, York with...
I got 2 million. Go that direction.
Vollmer still at gunpoint is going to use Vollmer to translate and get everything moving. He's like, all right, get your guys up. Tell them to get in a column of 2. We're going to march out of here. Tell them to pick up your wounded. Tell them to pick up my wounded and my dead. They're going to carry them back to our lines. Problem, how on earth are we going to get back? Because we definitely can't go the way we came through the woods. We're not going to be able to keep track of like 100+ German prisoners through that dense forest. We're going to have to go out in the open, and the rest of the...
How many men do you have? I have me. Chop, chop, bitches. Let's go.
Germans are going to see us, and that's not going to work out. At which point, Vollmer chimes in, and he's like, well, you can take this gully right here, and that'll take you right to Hill 223. He's obviously trying to set him up for an ambush because he knows where all of his soldiers are, and York is like, well, we're not fucking going there. You know what? I'm the main character. We're just going to march right down the main road that goes straight to Chantal Cherie, straight to Hill 223. So that's what they do. They just take off ruck marching right down the middle of this main road in the middle of enemy-held territory because York is the main character, and it's all part of God's plan, I guess. So they're making their way there, and sure enough, they run into an entire platoon of Germans that are guarding the road.
Cheer 100. How many men do you have? I have enough. Arise.
Thanks for the bits. The real question is how many individual bullets do I personally have is the better question. That I am not going to answer.
Road, because obviously. However, from the Germans' perspective, there's like 7 Americans and 100+ Germans. There's absolutely no way that those Americans have those Germans as POWs, so they don't open fire. They end up walking up and approaching to see what's going on, figuring the Americans are the POWs. Once they get close enough to realize the Americans are the ones with the guns, York shoves his pistol into Vollmer's back and is like, make them surrender, tell them they're surrounded. Vollmer does what he's told, tells them to drop their guns, they're surrounded. They do it because Vollmer's the battalion commander. They drop their guns and they get taken as POWs too. From there, they just keep marching to Hill 223, and as they start getting closer, the Americans see a massive formation of German uniforms approaching. They start freaking out, thinking it's a giant counterattack. They start moving men around, getting ready for a fight, and as they keep getting closer and closer, they're looking through field glasses and they see York's big ginger ass with a gun pointed at the German, and is like, holy shit, York captured everybody. So
it is kind of hilariously stupid. Like, we outnumber you so much that this shouldn't be happening. Like, how is this happening?
They get to the base of Hill 223. The 82nd commander meets him down there and is like, York, holy shit, how many men did you capture? To which York replies, honestly, I have no idea, sir. And the commander's like, all right, well, you're promoted to sergeant, by the way. Great work. March these guys into Chantal Cherie and I'll count them off as they march by, I guess. Commander then proceeds to count them off as they march by. York had captured 132 Germans. So York marches his POWs off to Chantal Cherie, and the rest of the 82nd resumes their attack because now the Germans have 35 less machine gun positions, and the ones that do remain don't have a chain of command to be giving them orders. So they overtake the objective. They secure the area fairly easily. York makes it.
I have one war. Next up.
To Chantal Cherie, where battalion headquarters are. Battalion headquarters is like, we don't have the logistics for this many prisoners. March them up to regimental headquarters. Marches them up to regimental headquarters. They can't take that many prisoners either. March them to division headquarters. Marches them all the way to division headquarters. When he gets there, General Lindsay, like the main guy in charge of the 82nd, approaches York and is like, York, I hear you've captured the whole damn German army. To which York replies, just with sheer Forrest Gump levels of modesty, no sir, I only captured 132.
Shit.
Yes, I know that.
From there, he finds a cot, lays down, writes in his journal for a little bit, because, you know, he's had a pretty eventful day. In his journal, he writes, and I quote, "So you can see here in this case of mine where God helped me out. I'm a witness to the fact that God did help me out of that hard battle, for the bushes were shot up all around me, and I never got a scratch."
Listen, Volkner or whatever was just so mystified that it was happening that apparently he was shaking or something, because his aim for being that high up was not good. Or, you know, God. Whatever.
Next morning, York reports back to Captain Danforth, and he requests to take out a small detail.
I could see, like, it's like, well, this just, like, very much cemented my belief, because, like, obviously.
Cheer 500. Hey YouTube kittens. We have CHELZOR merch now. Check it out at UWU Market.
Zane, thank you for the bits and the call out. I do have merch now on UWU Market. I like how the text to speak is like, I'm not even going to try that. I'll just spell it out.
To go back to the site of his battle and look for any survivors, because that's just the type of guy that York is. Captain Danforth not only agrees to let him do it, but he's like, I'm going with you, and he brings some other high-ranking officers with him because they want to hear York explain what the fuck happened. By the time they get out there, there's no survivors. All the dead bodies have already been removed. There was never an official body count of how many Germans York killed, but pretty much everybody agrees it's somewhere between 20 and 30 that he had killed single-handedly. York then takes him to the patch of grass that was his firing position, and, you know, he was in the heat of battle. He wasn't really paying attention to what was going on. It was all part of God's plan. But looking at it in retrospect, everything around the patch of grass that he was on is absolutely shot to shit. Just hundreds of bullet holes all over it. None of them hit Alvin York. He dropped his canteen.
That is insane, by the way. Like, that is bonkers.
Holes all over it. None of them hit Alvin York.
Like, statistically, too? That's crazy.
He dropped his canteen during that firefight. That canteen was still there, feet from his position, and that canteen had 18 bullet holes in it. Okay, literally the whole canteen. It's all part of God's plan. York finishes explaining everything that happened there. They head back to headquarters. This is like a big deal, right? I mean, you're gonna probably give this guy the Medal of Honor. They gotta really know what happened, and this sounds so incredibly unbelievable. Like, they need to make sure this actually happened before they write this up, right? So they interview York twice. Same exact story every time. He's incredibly modest about the entire thing, tries to give as much credit to the other 7 privates as he can. They interview the 7 privates. All 7 privates are like, Alvin York's a fucking superhero. They the Germans are like, it was fucking crazy. I don't know. We couldn't hit the guy with bullets. They interview Vollmer. The story is the same across everybody. It's one of the most well-researched battles ever. From here,
because that makes no sense if you think about it. What do you mean this one dude captured 132 people with like 7 privates, but really all of the 7 privates are like, no, we just kind of were there. Like, we didn't really do anything. Like, that is insane. Like, Jesus, I would also, and like, there's plenty of people to ask. He captured 132 people. Like, That's crazy.
A couple of weeks go by. By October 28th, 1918, his unit gets pulled back out of the Argonne. They go to the rear, and then he gets placed on 10 days leave on November 1st. And while he's on leave, he sends a postcard back home to his mother. You know, he's probably got a lot to tell her. That postcard reads, and I quote, "Hello, I'm okay. Sending you a postcard view of a little of this country along the coast. It's a nice scene." Well, that's all. He's literally Forrest Gump.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to say about that.
That's the right on, man. You said it all.
Now, like I said, he goes on 10 days leave on November 1st, 1918. Guess what happens on November 11th, right as he's ending his leave? Germany surrenders, World War I is over. Coincidence? Almost unequivocally yes, but it's funny to joke that Alvin York was coming off vacation, so the Germans just decided to call it a day and end World War I.
We called him Baba Yaga.
From here, Alvin York
Baba
was
Yaga.
recommended for the Distinguished Service Cross. The only reason they weren't going to give him the Medal of Honor was because, well, the story was too unbelievable and nobody was willing to agree that that actually happened. So they conducted an even more thorough investigation. Turns out it was all 100% legit. They upgraded it to the Medal of Honor. He gets awarded the Medal of Honor. From here, they get sent out to some parade field. They're ordered to pick up all the cigarette butts out of this parade field because there's some fancy French general coming in to do some ceremony or something rather. So York and the rest of the guys are out in this parade field for like 2 days, picking up thousands and thousands of cigarette butts. Turns out the French guy that was coming was actually the French guy, Ferdinand Foch, the supreme Allied leader of World War I, and he was actually coming for Alvin York. They have a big ceremony, and Ferdinand Foch awards Alvin York the French Croix de Guerre, essentially the French version of the Medal of Honor. He pins it right next to York's Medal of Honor and says, and I quote, "What you did was the greatest thing ever accomplished by any soldier in any of the armies of Europe." From here, York gets yanked away. He goes on speaking tours all over France. He does that for a number of months. He's finally ready to go home.
Hey, man, can I just leave? I don't know what happened. I was chosen by God, didn't get hit, got 132 POWs, and I would like to go back home now. Cool.
Goes back to America. The Americans find out. They want to know more about York. He does speaking tours all over America. At this point, he's still in the United States Army. He finally gets released from service, but the American public wants more. They want to know everything. He's getting $1,000 offers to go give speaking engagements, which back at this point in time, $1,000 is a ton of money. That is a lot. $10,000 for his life story in a book.
Damn.
He's getting offered $50,000 to do a film about his exploits. He rejects all of it. He doesn't want any of it. He doesn't want the fame. He doesn't want to be recognized or glorified for having to take a human life.
I'm going back into the woods. I'm done. I'll see you guys later. Hopefully not, actually. Please quit talking to me.
Only feels like he did it because it was absolutely necessary, because he is the peacemaker. So that's it. He just flat out rejects everything, goes back into the mountains of Tennessee. He just wants to go there, live his life, read his Bible, marry his sweetheart Gracie. And that's exactly what he does. Time goes by and he still has people offering him money left and right for speaking engagements, movies, books, anything and everything you can imagine. He's getting offered money to endorse products, absolutely everything. And eventually he kind of figures, you know, this is a rare opportunity. He could probably do a lot of good in the world if he raised all this money and did something productive with it. And he remembers, you know, he wasn't really able to go to school as a kid. He has about a 3rd grade education. He was only able to go to school on weekends. There just wasn't a school in that part of rural Tennessee when he was growing up, and there still isn't today. But if he could raise enough money, he could change that. He could affect the lives of all the kids around him, and that's what he decides to do. So that's what
That's nice.
what he does. He leverages his fame to raise money to open up schools for kids in rural areas so they can get an education. He goes on speaking tours, raising money. He sells the rights to his book. He sells the rights to his war diary that he kept during World War I. He sells the rights to a movie, goes on, be's the technical advisor. He ends up raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, which at this point in time is millions. He ends up founding the York Institute in Jamestown, Tennessee, which is a privately funded school, but it's open to kids for free. And this wasn't just like overnight or over a year. This took years and years and years to do. And over the course of that time, he raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he paid himself almost nothing. Like, he didn't build a new fancy house. He didn't.
Like, I assume he just, like, kept, like, not necessarily kept the money, just used money to stay alive at, like, bare minimum.
buy a bunch of nice stuff for himself or his family. He was still living exactly how he grew up the entire time. Out of the hundreds of thousands of dollars,
So even less.
I believe he paid himself just over $6,000 over the course of like a decade. The man is truly selfless. He literally took just enough money to keep food on the table for his family and gave everything else to this school. But as we all know, no good deed goes unpunished. Alvin York, the man with a third-grade education, was under the impression that because he was doing selfless stuff with the money, he was literally donating it to give kids an education, he thought that that was a charitable donation and that he didn't have to pay taxes on it. Well,
oh no. Oh no. The IRS is coming. The IRS wants their cut.
Apparently he was wrong because he wasn't a, 401c fucking charity or whatever the fuck with the IRS. So none of that counts, and Alvin York now owes a ton of money in back taxes, and the IRS is coming after him.
Yeah.
Too early to learn that the government is a greedy piglet that suckles on a taxpayer's teat until they have sore, chapped nipples.
Yeah, 401c3. Is it 401 or a 501?
Just so we're on the same page, this is like now the early 1940s. 2 decades.
Sorry.
Decades have gone by, and the tax rate at this point in time is absolutely insane. The top marginal income bracket,
I was about to say, I was like, I'm pretty sure it's 501c3.
federal taxes is 81%. He made $134,000 with his hit movie that came out in 1941. The IRS said he owed them like $90,000 of that money. Alvin York didn't have it. He used all the money to build this school and start teaching kids for free. When the IRS told him that he owed all that money, he had a net worth of $21,000. $20,000 of that net worth was just the value of the farm that him and his family lived on. You know, the same farm that his family has lived on since they came across the ocean and lived there in a fucking cave. Other than that, he had a car that was worth $700. He had $2.20 in his checking account, and he got a $10 a month stipend for being a Medal of Honor recipient. That was it. He gave everything else away. Thankfully, the government steps in because York doesn't have the money to keep funding this school. So the government steps in and is like, oh, you built the whole school for us. You bought instruments for the band, books, chairs, desks, everything. Oh yeah, we'd be willing to, take that over and make it a public school, which York doesn't give a shit. He literally just wants kids to get an education. So of course he signs it over to the government so they can keep maintaining the York Institute. And it is literally still in operation to this day. It is a public high school in Jamestown, Tennessee. In addition to that, thanks to a literal act of Congress, they forgive his debt and he is now debt free. Now, going back to his movie, came out in 1940.
I'm happy that happened because, Lord.
41, right as America is getting ready to enter World War II, it is a nationwide sensation. He becomes the most popular man in the country all over again. Because of the popularity of this movie and because of the fact that Alvin York served in the 82nd Infantry Division, the All-American Division, when World War
Congress didn't want him coming for them John Wick style.
The fact that Alvin York served in the 82nd Infantry Division, the All-American Division, when World War II kicks off and they start reactivating old units, one of the first units to get reactivated is the 82nd Infantry, which becomes the 82nd Airborne, which is still active to this day, and it is one of the most prestigious military units in the United States Army. In addition to that, it inspires tens of thousands of American men to join the military because they want to be a hero too, just like Alvin York, and one of those Americans is Audie Murphy, who would go on to become the most decorated war hero of World War II. Alvin York would go on to pass away at the age of 76, but his legacy lives on both in the school that he helped found and the 82nd Airborne Division. And that time the Army tried to name a god-awful tank after him. Seriously, can we name something else awesome after this guy? Like the next sniper rifle, call it the York Peacemaker. That's a dope name. He deserves it. Let's do that. This man accomplished incredible and unbelievable things both on and off the battlefield. And then afterwards, he went on to live a truly selfless life in the service to others. And
he seems so cinnamon roll.
Why you should never forget the name Alvin York. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Go for broke. American Samurai. I don't know what the bottom of it says.
My favorite thing about the Sergeant York movie was he was the technical advisor. Like, he signed off on absolutely everything in the movie. He tried to have the other men represented. He tried to keep it as accurate as possible. But there was one thing he didn't sign off on, and I don't even know if he knew they did it, because they made it seem like Alvin York kissed Gracie before he went off to war. Both Alvin, his wife, and all of their kids after the fact, whenever this gets brought up or whenever they're interviewed about it, they are adamant and make sure they point out That never happened. Gracie York is not some hussy that would kiss before their marriage. Their first kiss was on their wedding day. And I don't know. I think that's just like funny and cute. Anyways, see you guys later.
Yeah, that was fiction. That was dramatization. That didn't happen at all. Putting a stain upon my name.
I remember one day back in the Argonne when we took several prisoners. I noticed one German corporal.
He definitely sounds like someone who was from Tennessee in the early 1900s.
Looking us over, mildly puzzled. He could speak a little English. He asked if all of us in the outfit were Americans. We told him we were. He just shook his head. Didn't seem that he could take it at all. You see, the All-American Division was made up of boys from all over the country. There were boys from the mountains like me and boys from the small towns and cities. There were Southerners, New Yorkers, Middle Westerners, as well as boys from the cow country in the Pacific coast. And there were men whose folks had been Greek, Italian, Jewish,
Italian,
Polish, Swedish, and Irish. Just every strain of good American you could think of. It sure seemed to get this German corporal down. He just couldn't understand how we could all pull together and smash up soldiers of the great German race. They can't get it through their thick.
There's one thing American does. It's war. Val, thank you for the subscription. Appreciate you.
Kids, that it's not your creed or your height, nor the color of your eyes that makes an American. It's our freedom and equality over the Constitution and our Bill of Rights that makes an American an almighty fighter. Once a man has tasted that freedom, he'd rather die fighting than to do without it for himself and his children.
Yep. And if there's one thing that we do, we are willing to take up arms. Like, we are willing to take up arms.